Hi, I'm Thomas Blair, and you might wonder why I'm sitting on the floor with a bunch of kittens. Stay tuned and find out. Hi, my name is Thomas Blair, and today we're going to talk a little bit about me. So I was born and raised in San Diego, California, and right out of high school, I joined the United States Marine Corps. The Marine Corps was an awesome experience for me. I learned a lot about life, what I wanted to be in life. I learned leadership skills, teamwork skills, pretty much the desire to be the best in everything. I mean, the Marine Corps is the finest of our armed forces, so there's no doubt that they instill that in you. So by my 3.5 years in the Marine Corps, I'd pinned on my 3rd stripe. I became a sergeant, which is fairly quick. So I was a young guy, a lot of responsibility. And during my final year in, I got to go on a Westpac and see the world, which was really cool. I got to go to Hawaii, Bali, spend some time on the dirt in the Middle East. And on the way back, we got to cross the equator in the international date line. And I became a golden shellback. And it was really cool. They flooded the back of the ship because the ships are called gator freighters and they have the hovercraft in the back. And they flooded the back of the ship and we actually got to swim across the equator. And it was a really cool experience until I looked up and I noticed a lot of sailors walking on the inner catwalks with rifles. And I was like, why do those guys have rifles? And I'm like, oh, there's probably sharks in this water. This is enough of this experience for me. And I swam back in and enjoyed the rest of the day. And yeah, I had a lot of fun in the Marine Corps and I learned a lot. And a lot of those lessons applied later on in my life as I became a game developer. So after I left the Marine Corps, I started going to college and I read in a PC Gamer magazine about this game called Ultima Online. And one of the things that caught my eye was they'd stopped making the game because their servers were having problems and there was no way you were going to find it. So that, of course, got me to go look for it. And I think finally at a CompUSA, someone had hidden a copy behind 5 or 6 other different games. And I was like, found it. And I took it home and installed it. I got hooked ever since. I remember one of my first experiences, I was just kind of wandering around the forest and a character named Bart Simpson wearing a blue robe and a bone armor helmet came up and I was like, hi. And he shot 2 fireballs at me and killed me. And that kind of paved the path for me in online games. So I played Ultima Online for about 2 years. And then one day my roommate came home with a big bag. And he worked at electronics boutiques at the time. And he threw a box of EverQuest at me. He's like, here's the new game. And at that time, I really couldn't get into EverQuest. I played the beta and I couldn't understand how people could play a game and their character die and they didn't lose their items. It was just a completely different experience from what I'd been playing in Ultima Online. And I just didn't get it, but I started playing with my roommates and over the next couple of years, I mean, we got really good and I joined one of the Uber guilds of my server. It was called Triton, Triton of Povar. And we had a lot of fun experiences and we put a lot of time into that game and we dominated the server. And by expansion 3, Velius, they had put in a quest that was perhaps the longest, most difficult quest to do, and it was called the Coldane Ring quest. And you had to lead a guild of anywhere from 60 to 100 people in an RTS-style battle and win. And it just so happened that I led my guild to the first victory in this quest and got the first 10th Coldane Ring. And when you won this quest, the NPCs gave you a couple items that you could hand out to the people who helped you. And I gave this face guard to my roommate. And he's like, cool. A couple weeks later, he was looting his corpse and he hovered over that face guard and he said, dude, this thing has your name on it. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, look. So I zoomed over to his machine And the item was now named Face Guard of Bentos the Hero, which was my character name. And I was like, no way. I zipped back to my computer and I sent a tell to the server GM. I'm like, is it like this for everybody? And he got back to me. He's like, that's the name of that item now. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, which at the time it was. Games didn't name items after players. And here it was that I was the first. So it was a monumental event in my life. In fact, I got a call a couple weeks later from Sony Online Entertainment asking if I would come out and interview for a Game Master position. So I went out and I got the Game Master position, and it was pretty awesome. I chose the name Blixtev as my GM name. I'd wanted Blix. If you remember the goblin from the movie Legend, the goblin was named Blix. Unfortunately, some players had taken that name, so I couldn't take it. So I took Blixtev. EverQuest 1, in the first 4 years of its existence, because it's changed over time because it's been a live product, has been the most influential. It launched my development career. I met my wife playing EverQuest. It really has been influential in my life. My experience with EverQuest, having done most of the content in an Uber guild, and then working there, I was quickly noticed by the dev team. And I got pulled over to the dev team as an apprentice designer. And I worked on the Planes of Power and the Legacy of Yukisha expansions. And it was pretty amazing. It was transitioning from being a hardcore player to helping players to now designing the content and implementing the content that they were playing. And during this time, Star Wars Galaxies had launched, and I'd also started playing that hardcore. And I can remember one day I was at home, and I got a call from my boss, and he said, "Hey man, Austin just called and asked you to stop playing your Galaxies character." And I was like, "Why did they do that?" He's like, "Apparently you're really close to unlocking Jedi, and you would be the first person to do it, and they really want to have a whole fanfare event and fly that person out to the Lucas Ranch, and we can't have it be a company employee." And I was like, man, that sucks. So it's definitely interesting, and I stopped playing the character until one of the players, non-company players, had unlocked it, but that kind of got me noticed by the Galaxies team. So a couple months later, I was asked to go out to Austin and help out the Galaxies team. And once again, me being that hardcore player who had a lot of knowledge about the game vaulted me to another position. So I came out to Austin and helped out the team for the next 4 or 5 years. It was quite an experience. I mean, I learned a lot. A lot of the lessons that I had, again, learned in the Marine Corps about leadership and teamwork helped me on the Galaxies team. And I went from very junior designer to eventually lead designer of that project. While on Galaxies, I also found some of the most rewarding aspects of this industry, which is every year SOE would do something called the Fanfare. And we would go out and we'd meet the fans, and you get to shake their hands and meet the people who are playing your game. It's just such an incredible experience. I recommend it to anyone who's ever worked in this business to actually meet the people who play your product. That's where I got to meet R2 and all kinds of other cool things. So yeah, Galaxies definitely had an impact on my life. Before I left that project, I submitted 2 patent applications for the Beastmaster system and the Entertainer Build-A-Buff system. And about 4 years later, those patents got approved. It's one of the larger kind of laurels as a designer in this industry is to actually have the US government acknowledge a design that you have made. I don't know a lot of designers who have had it done, but it's definitely yet another feather in the cap, so to speak. So sometime in 2008, my boss came to me and said, "Hey, you've been a large fish in a small pond for a long time. How'd you feel about being more of a medium fish in a larger pond?" And that was my cue to jump over to the DC Universe Online project. And that project was perhaps the most grueling project I've worked on in my life. We had a rough time making action combat work using Unreal in an MMO space on both the console and the PC. We were working about 16 to 18-hour days there for a full year, 6 days a week to get that project out the door. DC came to an end, and I left Sony Online Entertainment, and I got a call from Gordon Walton. And Gordon was starting up a local branch of Disney Playdom Studios in Austin and asked me if I wanted to come be a designer for him. So I went out and we made a social MMO for Facebook called Dragontown. It never launched in the States. It launched in the Philippines for its test case, but that was kind of my experiment in making an MMO for the social space. When Disney Playdom closed down in Austin, I was again on the prowl looking for a job. Got a call from Gordon Walton once again, and he was like, hey, you want to come out and meet my partner? I'd never met Todd before. Came out, had an interview, and shortly after had a job offer. So I came out to be a designer for him and start laying the groundwork of Crowfall. And that's where we are today. Many of the things that I learned in the Marine Corps and through my development career kept me going on, and I used each and every one of those things at my next job and on my next product. So I'm kind of really happy to be here. It was a long trip, and hopefully Crowfall will be a pretty damn awesome game because it has all of these years of experience built up in it. While searching on the web for photos, it's kind of hard to find some of those old photos. I found a picture of Jim Neighbors with a kitten, and apparently there is a precedent for Marines saving kittens. Who knew? And now, kittens! So this little girl is Freeway, and I've got an interesting story to tell you about her. Okay, so Gordon had asked me to answer a post on the forums, so I was up till about 3 a.m. that night, which set me off the next morning about 20 minutes late. I was just 20 minutes behind in my normal routine. Got on the road, and normal traffic was going on, and right near the 183 at Spicewood, traffic naturally starts to slow down. And as it was slowing down, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a little shape in the number 4 lane. And I just was like, what is that? And then I realized it was a kitten, and it was running across the traffic, and I was just like, oh my God, that thing is going to get smashed. Because nobody was stopping. And I saw a car go over the kitten, and I was like, that thing is not coming out. And miraculously, it was on the other side. And I saw the kitten run into the safety lane. And at that moment, I was zipping by, and I couldn't get over because there was a car on my left. So I had to get off the freeway and do a loop about. So I got off the freeway, and of course the light was red. But it did give me time to pull out my phone so I could text Tully and say, hey, saving baby from freeway, be late. And he just responded with OMG lol. Apparently in stand-up, he just told everybody I was saving a baby from the freeway. And I have no clue what they all said, but it was pretty hilarious. So going through the light, did a little loop about. Right at that loop about, I happened to notice one of the buildings was called Uncle Bob's Storage. I'd never seen this building before, but there it was. Got back again, looped back around, and I'm scanning the other side of the freeway, and I can just see the little fur shape that was the kitten. So I was like, whew, made it back in time. Did a very unsafe move, and I zipped across 4 lanes of traffic to into the safety lane and parked the car. And I just got out of the car and started running down the freeway because of course I had zipped past where the kitten was. I don't know what people thought seeing a big giant dude running down the freeway that morning. They were probably like, what the hell is that guy doing? And I came up right behind the kitten, and I was hoping she wouldn't run, and she didn't hear me because the traffic was so loud. Grabbed her by her scruff, put her in my arm, turned around and started running back the other way. Got back in the car, got right back off at that intersection. Again, red light. That light just did not want to be green for me that morning. And I used that moment to call my house and say, hey, I'm bringing home a kitten that I just saved from the freeway. And the coincidence of the fact that my wife and I exclusively work with saving kittens was just yet another factor in all the events lining up for that one little kid. We work with the Williamson County Regional Animal Shelter. Really long name, but that's where we work with. So yeah, if you ever find a kitten, you should take it to your local animal shelter. If you think you have time to help out, you can become a foster like my wife and I, and you essentially raise these kittens from 2 weeks to 12 weeks, get them into a shape where they would make great pets. Teach them that hands are good things. You teach them how to go potty in some cases, how to just play and just be loved. So when I look back, it's just the amount of things that had to align for me to save that kitten. Had I been 10 seconds later, I wouldn't have seen her. she just would have been just another lump of debris on the side of the freeway. It's a pretty amazing thing that that kitten is here to this day.